pandemic COVID-19 post-COVID syndrome. This name of pandemic allows us to better understand the meaning of the use of hirudotherapy treatment. Next slide, please. The diagnosis of post-COVID syndrome was formulated thanks to a collective brainstorming session of the Moscow City Scientific Therapeutic Society named after Professor Botkin, MCSTS, during a significant number of observation and analysis of patients during 2020 to 2021. In the person of its leader, Professor Vorobyov, this diagnosis is follows. Post-COVID syndrome is a chronically occurring thrombovasculitis with a predominant lesion of the nervous system, brain, autonomic, and peripheral system and skin. The team of authors of the Moscow City Scientific Therapeutic Society proposed the following strategy of the treatment of post-COVID syndrome. First, the use of direct anticoagulants. Second, plasmapheresis, at least 900 milliliter per one procedure, at least 5 procedures, frequency every other day, replacement of plasma with physiological saline to relieve intoxication. Next slide, please. Without denying the importance of proposed therapy, we offer an alternative way to solve the problem of reducing mortality from pneumonia and other complications caused by COVID-19. This alternative treatment is the use of the system method of leaching, SML. The proposed solution is based on almost 30 years of experience in the use of SML in elderly people with multi-organ pathology and children treated in the Academy of Hirudotherapy of St. Petersburg. Our experiments in the treatment of post-COVID syndrome 2020 to 2023 shows that it is possible, moreover, with high efficiency. Based on the analysis of the mechanism of pathogenesis of the COVID-19 virus, our article was published priority on April 21, 2021, in relation to the treatment of post-COVID syndrome. COVID-19 prospects the treatment of rehabilitation of post-COVID syndrome by Ayurvedic method Hirudotherapy after scientific medical sciences. Even earlier, an article was published on reducing mortality from complication of post-COVID syndrome, as well as in complication arising from vaccination against coronavirus, regardless of the type of vaccines used. COVID-19 theoretical and practical substantiation for reduced mortality from complications after scientific and medical sciences. Next slide, please. The author of this message owns a series of publications in the period 2020 to 2023, highlighting the features of pathogenesis of new disease, COVID-19 post-COVID syndrome, as well as a method of treatment and prevention of this disease based on scientifically proven medicinal properties of the medical leech, Hirudo medicinalis. The editors of 6 scientific medical journals adopted the author's concept of the name of the disease, COVID-19 post-COVID syndrome. This definition of a new pandemic is important not only from a taxonomic point of view, but above all from a mental point of view, since it gives the doctor an understanding of complexity of the disease and requires monitoring patients throughout this period. For example, monitoring the dynamics of D-dimers, prothrombin time, platelet count, and the level of fibrinogen in the blood of convalescents. Now, these are the most informative markers of the dangers of thrombosis. Next slide. The term long COVID does not reflect the substance of the disease process. In addition, in the series of publications, we analyzed the most recent and proven various aspects of pathogenesis of COVID-19 post-COVID syndrome. As a result of this campaign, our recommendations are as follows. In the acute period of the disease, we conduct leaching courses daily, and in the second phase of the disease, 2 sessions per week for 18 to 24 months. This technology is a serious alternative to oral anticoagulants and plasmapheresis. The use of direct anticoagulants has a number of significant contraindications and complications in the defeat of the central nervous system, can cause bleeding, nasal, throat, and renal. Plasmapheresis is available only to well-equipped clinics. Next slide. This alternative treatment is the use of the system method of leaching. The proposed solution is based along with 30 years of experience in the use of SML in elderly people with multi-organ pathology in children treated in the Academy of Hirudotherapy of St. Petersburg. Based on the analysis of the mechanism and pathogenesis of COVID-19 virus, our article was published in relation to the treatment of COVID-19 post-COVID syndrome. Next slide.
4 and 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Next slide, please. This slide shows us the research method which we used in our research. Akabame test, method of thermopuncture, the GVDV method based on the Kirlian effect, method of superposition brain scanning, the method of dialcometric, a neutron by Professor Dulnev, determination of information entropy flows, chaos and other criteria, SPA effect, excitation of bulk molecular waves by MM waves in water and water-containing media, the device Aquaphone. Next slide. Our discoveries, the discovery of phenomenon of hirudobiopsy, discovery of phenomenon biochemical adaptation, discovery of the energy effect, information entropic, discovery of stimulating effect of Hirudo medicinalis, discovery of acoustic effect of hirudotherapy, discovery of detoxification effect of hirudotherapy, discovery of phenomena of local hyperthermia in the body of benign brain tumor neurinoma, discovery of negentropic effect of hirudotherapy, the role of auto-hemohirudotherapy information of immunomodulatory effect of hirudotherapy, opening aquastructuring effect of hirudotherapy. Next slide. This slide shows us the influence of hirudotherapy on the results of GDV before and after hirudotherapy. Next slide. This slide shows the mechanism of increasing energy after hirudotherapy. The simple dissociation with energy 55.4 kilojoule per mole and dissociation on radicals plus reactive oxygen species with energy equivalent 532.8 kilojoule per mole. Next slide. Model of Nobel laureate Levi Rita Montalcini, organotypic culture of chicken embryo spinal ganglia, stimulation of nerve cells, neurons, observed by phase contrast microscopy in the culture of nerve ganglion cells of 10-day chicken embryo. First initial state and B after exposure of leeches, visible characteristic growth of neuritis processes. Next slide. The reason of reducing stress is an increase of serotonin in the brain. Therefore, hirudotherapy takes a person out of a state of depression. Next slide. The different colors of the neurotransmitters of our brain. Next slide. This slide shows how the brain works at the time of leech treatment. Dynamics of changes in the concentration of neurotransmitters. The dynamics of resonance activation of neurotransmitter system of the brain in a session of hirudotherapy. This is a brain of a 4-year-old child with diagnosis alalia. Next slide. Investigation of acoustic effect of medical leeches. On this slide, you can see the sensor of acoustic, I mean wave, acoustic waves. This is the beginning, and this is the end of the leaching procedure. Next slide. The original recording signal leaches in the process of broadcasting. This is a song leaches, and these pictures, this is a spectrum recording an acoustic signal of leaches in the process of broadcasting and Fourier transform. Next slide. The picture of the dynamics of death of leech treatment in the patient with chronic drug poisoning. Diagnosis: Krashenyuk's epilepsy, the small form of epilepsy. The period of pharmacological treatment of 11 years. Next slide. The death of leeches in the presence of toxin in bloodstream, the result of 2 operations and anesthesia, because leeches die from the first months of treatment. This slide shows us the death of leeches in the presence of toxin in the bloodstream, the result of intoxication with salts of heavy metals, because leeches die from the first month of treatment. Next slide. The model of destabilized 2, a powerful complex in the secret of leech that destroys blood clots. That's why we can use the leaching like the monotherapy during the pandemic disease, COVID-19, post-COVID syndrome. Thank you very much for your attention.